Cuba sí, Yankee no. Cuba sí, Yankee no. Cuba sí, Yankee no.
Abajo, abajo.
The Trump administration has implemented 121 new sanctions against Cuba, 121 new sanctions against the country that has already been blockaded for 60 years. And Cuba cannot get ventilators. And you know what else? It cannot get oil. And if you can't get oil, you struggle to produce food. And so the Trump administration, with its 121 new measures against Cuba, is throwing the country back into the crisis of the 1990s. We know how Cuba survived the 1990s. They survived by committing to a socialist economy, to sharing their scarce resources. They survived by community and creativity and resilience. But they also survived with international solidarity. We know because Rock Around the Blockade was there, doing our bit to support the Cuban Revolution in the difficult years of the 1990s, where Cubans are being made to suffer again by the United States government and the imperialist system, which does nothing to stop the illegal blockade of Cuba, despite the fact that for nearly 30 years, the whole world has voted against it, or most of the world has voted against it.
Cuba has suffered and fought and survived against the longest blockade in history. It has been able to survive this blockade, but not only survive it, but achieve incredible things, as our comrades are going to talk about, because it is a socialist country. It's a country where a revolution overthrew the capitalist ruling class, putting the working class in charge, putting the economy and the state in the control of the working class, and using the country's wealth and resources to benefit the working class.
So housing is a right in socialist Cuba. We volunteered at a construction site along with Rock Around the Blockade. We volunteered at a construction site rebuilding homes that had been destroyed by a rare tornado. Over 80% of the homes destroyed by January's tornado of that same year had already been rebuilt. Where is the equivalent process for Grenfell in rich capitalist Britain? Today in Cuba, women make up 53% of parliament, 60% of professionals, and there are so many work groups promoting women's well-being. These amazing achievements are not an accident, they're not coincidental. It's the function of socialism in Cuba. It's a system that values its people now, and it plans for and invests in future generations. Socialism is the only sustainable way of securing a good standard of living for everyone.
Well, in this country, we have had dramatic complications of the coronavirus because capitalism cannot even organise a basic test and trace and a basic service. The NHS was protected because people were stopped from going to see their doctors and nurses and seeking treatment. And we have to be careful what we read and what we say, because the coronavirus is a dangerous infection that's killing people, but actually our society is also killing people, and capitalism is killing people. And in Cuba, not only is socialism healthier for the population, but they've done the most fantastic work in the pandemic, going house to house with doctors, with nurses, and with volunteers to make sure people are there, are seen, are looked after, are well, both emotionally, psychologically, and physically.
This blockade is illegal. British government's failure to stand up against the US legislation is also actually illegal. It violates Britain's own rules. So what I'm saying to you is, if you need Cuba, like we all do, then you need to step up in solidarity. Now is the time that it matters.
Yeah.
The next protest of the US Embassy, whoever is the new president, or not new president, or new dictator, the next protest needs to have 10 times the amount of people who are here. Because if we lose Cuba, we lose humanity. Thank you.
We have to build a movement in this country. We have to build a movement that will fight racism and fight imperialism, because that's the precondition for building a socialist society. If you don't fight racism, if you don't fight imperialism, you can't even address the question of building a movement for socialism in this country. So there's a lot for us to learn as we stand outside this horrendous, ugly building. I mean, look at it. What are they defending? You know, this is an embassy. It's got a moat round it. Can you believe it? They're so terrified of everybody because they know the great majority of people in the world are opposed to US imperialism, because they have to suffer it day in, day out in their lives. And millions are dying as a result of it. We have to recognise that the only way we will defeat this monstrosity and the government it represents is by building a mass movement in this country for socialism. And that's what we all have to go away and do. Fight racism!
Fight imperialism!